Hello, and welcome to another lively discussion about racism in America. Over the past several months, I have assembled a panel of folks from around the country to talk about their views on racism and social injustice in America. This is going to be our last get together for 2020. And in this particular episode, we're going to talk about the year in review and what we learned, what we hope for, and what we realistically believe is going to happen as we move forward. So let me go ahead and start by asking everyone to identify who you are and where you're from, and then we'll get started. So we'll start with Jeb.
Hi, I'm Jeb Buffington. I'm originally from Rockport, Maine. I now live in the mountains of Western North Carolina.
Melody?
I am Scarborough and I grew up in Durham, North Carolina.
Peter?
Yes, I'm born in Omaha. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. And for the past 40 some years, I've lived in Arizona and Scottsdale currently.
Gary?
I was born in Goldsboro, North Carolina, partially raised there, and currently living in Philadelphia, PA.
Pat?
Hi, I'm originally from Chicago, now living in Durham, North Carolina.
Brooks?
Hi, my name is Brooks Bays. I live in Honolulu for the last 40 years, except for 5 years in Arizona. And my family's from Texas.
And Kathy?
Hi,
Excuse me.
I'm Kathy Bear. I grew up in Canton, Ohio, and have lived the rest of my life 30 miles north in Akron, Ohio.
Okay, so as you can see, this really is a diverse panel, not only by race and sex, gender, but also by the regions of the country that we all come from, because depending on where you live impacts a lot of your views, whether you believe that or not. I mean, I came from the Midwest. I now live in the South. So I have different views about living in the South versus living in the Midwest. So once again, this is a diverse panel, and I'm very glad that we've all been able to come together. So let me ask each of you, what story, event, incident, person, whatever, had the greatest impact on you in 2020? And let's start with Pat.
You would start with me. I think the outpouring of help. Oh, first, let me preface this by saying the folks at McDougal Terrace, which is a low-income housing neighborhood, just a few blocks from me, they were all evacuated due to just hygiene problems, just a really bad situation, sewage leaks, and just horrible. The place is in horrible condition. And so they were put up in hotels. It was very stressful for everyone, especially the kids, because they were still in school back then, and they weren't allowed to run around in the hotel. Kids have to run and play. So anyway, I was impressed by the outpouring of help to those folks, because they were told to leave, and they all thought they were coming right back. So they didn't pack all their clothes. No kitchen utensils, living in a hotel with nothing, no diapers, and just expecting the kids to behave and all that. So local restaurants, nonprofits, citizens, people there was just this outpouring of help in terms of food, diapers, meals, whatever supplies they needed. And that's what impressed me or moved me the most this year.
And Pat, for those of you who don't know, that was a local story in Durham, North Carolina. And I do remember that. And when I went to the grocery store, I made sure that I bought extra groceries for the kids because they
Nice.
needed the snacks. So, and I took them over there and
Nice.
was really, like you said, moved by the outpouring of support. And it really was across all of Durham. It wasn't just situated, in that 27704 or whatever zip code that is. It was really
But yeah.
everywhere. Okay, thank you for sharing that, Pat. Peter, let me go to you. What story, event, incident, person impacted you the most in 2020?
Well, I'd have to say that it's the COVID, all the impacts of COVID-19 and the shutdown early on in March. It just has been just a very long ordeal that the whole nation's going through. And I've been fortunate that it hasn't touched very close to home. Nobody I know has contracted the virus. But I did, when things were just starting to shut down, I got a call from a publisher that I was doing freelance work for, and it had given me a new assignment, and this was mid-March. And an hour later, they called up and said, forget about that new assignment. The whole publication is shutting down. So that was a setback, and there hasn't been a whole lot of freelance work, but I'm fine. I want to work and I enjoy writing. So, I do feel fortunate, but just all the things that everybody's going through, losing family members, it's just been a horrible, terrible year in that regard.
Yeah, and I know that I've said this before, but we lost my brother-in-law in March to COVID, and we're still trying to really cope with that. So I definitely get where you're coming from. How about you, Gary?
Honestly, it's COVID-19. I mean, that would probably be the thing that most people say. It has been something I've never seen before. I mean, none of us have ever seen it before, but it's crazy. The impact that it's left. You look at the tragedy of people dying. You have people like thousands of people dying a day. I've been impacted in my family, some people close to me, other friends. But I think what COVID has shown me is there's a spirit. There's like a human spirit that people are getting knocked down at the same time. You look around and you see people working together, building together, trying to get back to some sense of normalcy. When I see that, I mean, that's the impact that is left on me, because I'm seeing in the midst of everything that appears tragic, you still see hope, you still see ability of people to want to work together. And I think that, for me, is the thing that I'm clinging to, because this has been a really, really rough year. So that has been the major event for me. That's been the event that has changed everything. It's also challenged me to think about, how do I do my job differently? We've been home since March, all of our therapists, and we haven't gone back yet. We don't know when we're going to go back. We have been providing telehealth for our clients, and that's been difficult for some of our clients. It's been difficult for some of our therapists. But yet, the whole piece of being able to change, being able to adapt, that has left probably the most tremendous mark for me this year.
Okay, thanks very much, Gary. Melody?
I don't want to make it seem like I can't think for myself, but it's kind of along the lines of what Gary and Peter, I think, have said about COVID and just all of the challenges that have come with that, just from lifestyle changes. Thank God, my job, I work in clinical research, so I've been pretty secure there, but it still has caused some challenges with us for work, because doctors aren't able to get patients to come in due to COVID. Places are shut down. We find out patients have passed away. I have family members that have been affected by COVID. One of my best friends right now is battling COVID. So just all of the challenges that have come with COVID. It has brought out some good things as far as like togetherness and family and realizing there are things that you may not necessarily need unless you, as long as you have the essential items that pretty much all you need. But the negative things that have come along with it have been really, really hard and challenging.
Brooks, thanks, Melody. Brooks?
Oh, my gut reaction was to be like hyper personal and say my brother's suicide in August, completely unexpected, when he killed himself, shattered everything. I started my watch, excuse me. But on a larger scale, when 2020 started, people would say, "Oh, we'll get, clear vision in 2020," and we have seen through the reaction and the response to COVID and to the reaction and response of the election, who we are, who the United States of America really is. And it's been shocking to a lot of people who we really are. It's been not at all shocking or not at all surprising to a lot of people who we are. The fact that half the country is white supremacists and are perfectly happy to hurt the other half of the country. Somebody said something about, someone from Germany, I think it was, said Americans are waking up to the fact that a third of their country is perfectly happy to watch a third of the country kill the other third of the country. And people didn't know that. I mean, a lot of us knew that, but that's who we are. That's where we are. And COVID has been different in the United States because of who we are and how we are as a people. So,
yeah, I am so sorry to hear about your brother.
Thank you.
You did not. I mean, I believe you might have been on a call in August, and I
didn't say anything because it was still just too crazy. But,
okay.
And excuse me, a bird is trying to get into my house. So.
Okay, no problem. All right, let's go on to Kathy.
I don't like it when birds come into my house.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, you have a beautiful home. They probably just want to hang out with you. All right, go ahead, Kathy.
Well, Brooks, I just want to say how sorry I am and my condolences to you and Beverly as well. COVID has taken so many lives. Fortunately, I don't know anyone personally who has passed away, but I know people who've gotten it. And my daughter just tested negative yesterday for like the third time she's been in quarantine. So anyway, this has been a huge year for me, huge in so many ways. COVID has been awful, of course, and listening to this day in and day out and having to shut the news off. I mean, it's just awful. It made me lose my job in April. It was a part-time job, so, it wasn't as big an impact as so many have had. But because of that, and because of George Floyd, which I said on our very first Zoom, my very first Zoom with you in like June, that George Floyd, his murder, changed my life. Yes. It absolutely changed my life. With being terminated from work and George Floyd being murdered, I connected with Beverly. I connected with my community. I have been on so many Zooms on Black and white relationships. I have researched, read, watched videos, studied. It has changed my life. I am now a huge advocate. I am part of our Akron Mayor's Task Force on Racial Equity and Social Justice. I am part of an organization called Love Akron. And of course doing this. And I'm very proud that I'm planning a program on Black Jewish relations. And many people don't know that Blacks and Jews have a huge relationship based on Martin Luther King Jr. and Rabbi Abraham Heschel. And I won't go into all the details with that, but I'm now working with our Akron Urban League and a Jewish organization in Cleveland called American Jewish Committee on this program. And we're hoping to take it beyond. So that has been a huge change in my life. And I think if I hadn't lost my job to COVID, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now as a volunteer. And absolutely hoping that I can somehow make an impact on people by the work that I'm doing now. It was a huge year for me personally. This is the second year that I'm almost divorced. So I've been on my own for over 2 years, and it's just been a humongous growth year in so many ways. And I'm just thankful for all of you and for everyone that is in my life now. So,
and you know, I want to say thank you to you, Kathy, because I do remember the very first Zoom call when we talked about white privilege and how you just explained, yeah, you had it, you knew what it was, you had it, and I really did not know the extent of the white privilege you had.
yeah.
And I do appreciate you being very open and honest about, you know, your personal experiences, because that's been the purpose of, you know, these calls, is just to open up. I mean, your life is your life. You can't change it. My life was my life. So for that, I say thank you very much. And I have seen your growth. I've truly, and you
Yeah.
actually have Black friends on Facebook. I mean, oh my God.
I do. I have live Black friends too.
So yeah,
Here in Akron.
that's growth for sure.
But I realized that the way that we build relationships is to make relationships. And I have made a huge effort in building relationships with Black people in this community, as well as on here, but on a day-to-day basis with others. And it's absolutely made a difference in my life. It's very difficult being on Zoom and not being able to meet people face to face. And it takes even more effort to build the relationship with people, but that's my goal.
Okay,
Every
great. Thank you. All right, Jeb, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I would agree that COVID has impacted, you know, the country in a huge way. I've been working freelance for a long time, and so my lifestyle hasn't really changed. I think I was going to say too, like Kathy, that George Floyd's murder was a huge inspiration to me. I was already working for the NAACP at a distance, and it just sort of underlined or reaffirmed my commitment to do the best that I can for that organization, and to keep, you know, reaching out to people. And, you know, after 4 years, just now, it looks like the election's resolved. I think looking back from history, we will look back as one of the big events. One of the big events of 2020 was the fact that we got rid of, Trump, who was a potential a dictator, a real threat to democracy. And, you know, we just got through with the skin of our teeth. But I think looking back, COVID and voting out Trump after one term will be the big events of the year.
Okay,
And,
thanks
I'm
very much
sorry,
for
the
that,
whole
Jeb.
George Floyd thing goes back to BLM too. And the fact that BLM became a multiracial nationwide movement that really got people working shoulder to shoulder. I think that's what, you know, started all of these conversations and you know, gave us a lot of confidence as something to feel good about, you know, during this terrible year.
All right, thanks a lot for that, Jeb. All right, so let me, some of you've kind of answered this question already, but I want you to take it a little bit deeper. How has 2020 changed your life in respect to how you view people of the opposite race? How has it changed your life? How has it impacted you? So let's start with you, Gary.
I was going to try to take some time to figure that one out. Okay.
Okay, do you need some time? I
No,
will.
no. I'm going to try to. I'm trying to answer. I
What
think
have you learned? What have you learned from members of the opposite race? What have you learned that you can take with you, and it's changed your life in one way or the other? Maybe that's a better question.
Well, I think some of the things I've learned is that there are sincere people who really want change, people that really want progress. There are people who really want to see equality, want to see everyone on an equal basis. There are people out there that really do want to see an end to the biases, the end to the racism. I think the other thing that I take with me is that there are a lot of people who don't see it that way. And that there are a lot of people who really are comfortable in their own racist skin. I mean, there are a lot of people who are okay with no change. And I've learned that there are a lot of people that are able to, I guess, defend what they believe and defend it very strongly. But once again, for me, I think it's about hope. When I see people that truly get it, when I see people that truly understand where we are as a country, where we are as a people, does that mean that we're all bad? No. But what it means is that there are some changes that need to be made, but there are people that want to. So that gives me hope to know as we go into 2021, we can do that. There's something that we can hold on to, something that we can grasp, something that we can believe that there is a greater purpose and that most people are getting it. It's just that what scares me, there's a lot of people that don't get it.
Okay, and I agree with that. And Melody, I did see you shaking your head, and Kathy, I saw you shaking yours too. Melody, let me ask you the same question. How has 2020 changed your life, and what have you discovered about white people that perhaps you didn't know, or has helped you in one way or another, or has opened your eyes?
I think 2020 has opened my eyes to um, the problems that I recall my mother talking about she had growing up with, as far as race and evil white people still exists. I guess I thought because for so many years it wasn't something that I really experienced. We didn't hear too much about it going on. I didn't really feel like it was that big of an issue. So now I realize that it is still a big issue that we still are working to address and make better. It made me sort of skeptical of some of the white people that I knew based on social media and comments that I started seeing being made. Forums like this have helped with my skepticism that I have started to have, because I do realize that there are genuine white people that are in our corner and are helping us. And I wish the same for anyone that may have had a different opinion about Black people, that these types of forums also help to work on those thoughts and those feelings and help them to realize we are all different, but we have a lot of similarities. And at the end of the day, a lot of us just want peace and happiness and to just love one another.
Okay, Jeb, let me ask you.
I just noted that you said the opposite race, which I think is a really interesting term. I'm sorry that I don't blame you for saying that, but I think it's a terrible indictment, not of you, but of, you know, what's happening, that they're opposite races. Where did, you know, like our Chinese people, Asian people, they're a different race. Where do are they opposite, or are they somewhere in between? I don't know. I hate that. I hate the wording, but I'm not saying you're not right to say it. Okay. You know, as I said, I already, you know, I think was aware because of my work. You know, it's been 6 years now since I've been working for the NAACP. I was aware of what was going on. It was not as much of a shock to me. What was a shock, as I say, was after George Floyd, when so many people, especially young people, white people, became allies, and that was a great joy. In terms of my personal connections with people, certainly this forum, you know, politics, I tend to go strongly one way or the other. I don't mind arguing on Facebook, as some of you know already. I've seen that. It's probably made me more adamant, maybe less patient. But I was aware. Maybe it's a question of motivation, I think, more than anything else, what's happened this year.
Okay. All right, Kathy. Yeah, go ahead, Melody.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say real quick with Jeb saying that it's interesting, that thought process, because I think as Black people, when you say the opposite race, we just think about white people and we don't think about the other races. So, and it's just because of our history. So Jeb, it was interesting for you to say that.
And I agree. So I mean, thank you, Melody. All right, so let me ask you, Kathy. You kind of touched on it a little bit in the previous question, but you know, what have you learned? Because you know, I want to share the story briefly. You know, the jogging story. Remember the black jogger? You were out walking, and there was a black man, and
Yes.
you walked
Yes.
the other way because
Yes.
you were kind of fearful. And I wonder, you know, thinking back on that and all that's gone on in 2020, if that situation were to happen again, you know, would your reaction be different?
Absolutely, 100%. I've changed so much, as you know. And I think I wrote some notes down because I loved what everybody has been saying. But I think the biggest thing I learned, because, and Beverly knows, and not everybody was on here that first time I talked about white privilege. I talked about an incident that happened the first day of my freshman year at Canton McKinley that really scarred me for many, many, many years. And it was a you know, young Black girl who tried to trip me walking into gym class and laughed about it with her friends. And it scared the bejeebies out of me. And it scarred me for a very long time. So probably the biggest thing I have learned is that we're all the same. You know, I mean, I dated a guy who was an Irish Catholic. We're more different than you and me. We're the same. We have different backgrounds. You know, I'm Jewish, you're Christian, most of you. You've had a different experience growing up wherever, but we're really in our hearts the same people. And one of the things I wanted to say that Melody touched on is, you know, that I really pray and I hope that all of us good people outweigh the bad, that we as good people can truly make inroads and make a difference in this world that we live in, and not be afraid anymore of anyone. And I have walked many, many, many times since I shared that story. And instead of running away, I greet everybody. Black, white, Asian, doesn't matter. How are you today? You know, it's let me open up my world. And then, you know, this journey, this Black Jewish relationship. I am working with a 99.9% Black church on this program. And that's even been an incredible journey. I'm working with 2 pastors right now from this church, and they have completely embraced my Judaism. And I've completely embraced their Black culture and the feel, you know, what they go through on a day-to-day basis. I've learned so much. And I realized even more deeply, I mean, I knew that Blacks and Jews had a relationship, but I didn't realize how deep it goes. And the only difference is the color of our skin, because racism has affected all Black people and anti-Semitism has affected all Jewish people. And we have suffered since the Bible, but we're white. So we don't suffer the same way. We're looked at just as white people. So I'm in such a better place, and my journey won't end, for sure. It will continue. And I thank everyone for your friendship as well. So.
All right. Thank you very much, Kathy. All right, Pat.
Let's see. I don't think 2020 has really changed my outlook at all. I hate to admit that I haven't learned anything because I value learning. But coming from Chicago and segregated Chicago as a South Sider, I was always very, very well aware of racism. And that's just part of life. Now that I'm in the South, it just has a different accent. A funny accent too, but yeah, I mean, the only thing I guess I've learned is that I have actually been surprised by the number of dummies that are still around. The Christian nationalists, that's a movement that I wasn't aware of. I mean, I knew of their goals, but didn't know it was a movement until this year. So I've been learning about that, and I laugh at them as I sit alone in my house and watching on YouTube, but I'm realizing how dangerous racism can actually be. I've always taken it kind of lightly as a person who grew up pretty comfortably on the South Side and didn't really have to deal with racism directly. I was very aware of it, but not really dealt with it personally. I can call an N-word maybe once in my life, and I just kind of laughed because I thought it was so far-fetched and goofy. It didn't even bother me. I was just like, what a clown, you know? But now that I'm realizing how I was watching a Trump rally today, in fact, and I grew up with the, what do you call it? I used to listen to talk radio when I was a kid, and the crazy right-wingers hated Israel, hated Jews. And now I'm watching this Trump rally, and they're blowing the, what do you call them, shofars, the horns, and they're like, woo, Israel. And I'm like, well, that's something new. But because I've studied Christian nationalism, I know why they're now aligned with Israel. And so that is the only thing I guess I've learned is how more ridiculous racism is becoming. It's getting ridiculous to the point where it's more than something to be laughed at, but it's definitely something to pay attention to, but still, in my case, laugh at.
All right, thanks, Pat. Brooks?
I've been sitting here trying to think. More things that I thought I knew have been confirmed, I think. And more, I think, confirmed about white people's response to Black people's pain and what white people have inflicted on Black people for hundreds of years. And so so I was going to flatter myself, but I was pretty aware, I think, of the situation, and I have always had Black friends, and so I've known what white people have done to Black people and still do to Black people. I think the only thing that's surprised me is how some Black people were relatively untouched by that. I have a friend here in Honolulu who's because of the riots and was protests and everything over the summer, she was doing a deeper dive into the history of enslavement, and she had kind of not really looked into that so much growing up, and she would post about her pain and shock and horror about what had been inflicted upon her, some of her ancestry. And I don't know where I'm going with that. But it was, I guess it surprised me that how surprised she was. It's like, it surprises me when I meet other gay people who have lived sort of blithely, homophobia is not a problem. It's like, girl, what are you talking about? It's not a problem. How have you managed to slide through life and this has not touched you? And that's great if it hasn't, it's my, there are many worlds all on the same planet model. And you can assume something about somebody, I guess you can assume something about somebody's life and be really wrong about it. And be, that yes, this has touched vast segments of the population, but it hasn't touched this person in this way. And that can be sometimes a surprise that, oh, wow, that's great. You've managed to grow up and not be hurt by this. That's wonderful. I'm happy to hear that, actually.
And,
So,
that's very interesting that you say that. And I'm going to get to you, Peter, but I would have to say that, growing up in the Midwest, I never thought as a child that I was touched by racism. I never did. I had white friends. As a matter of fact, I probably had more white friends than Black friends. And, but as I got older and started thinking back, I thought, oh, wow, yeah, that was racism. But I didn't see it because as a kid, I'm looking just through the eyes of my childhood. So, yeah, I truly, I get what you're saying about your friend not really, understanding the depth, because I think that depending on how you're raised and the environment that you're in, you can be isolated or think you're isolated from what's really going on in the world. It was only when I got to college, I think, that I really saw the racism, and I still had more white friends than Black friends. So, yeah, I get that, Brooks. Okay.
and she's a brilliant person. And one thing, she's a brilliant, and this is probably what surprised me. She's dazzlingly brilliant person, highly educated. It works, and it's just like, wow.
Clueless when it comes to her race. I got it. All right, Peter.
I just want to throw
Oh.
this in real quick. I do think it's probably a parent's goal for a child to grow up without knowing the pain of racism, or what would be the homophobia? Is that the word?
Homophobia.
Yeah, but still, like the Jews say, never forget. You know what I mean? Still, you have to be aware of the history and of what's happening to people, even if it's not affecting you directly. It's ignorant to not be aware. I just wanted to throw that in.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Jeb?
Just a quick note. When Brooks was talking about the pain that's inflicted, I was thinking about, I just ran across a quote from James Baldwin who said, and I had to look it up and read it, I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hatred so stubbornly is because they sense once their hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with pain, their pain. So hatred's inflicted, but it comes from hatred that the inflictor is also feeling and afraid to recognize.
Wow, that's deep. That's from James
Just wanted
Baldwin.
to throw that. Just wanted to throw that in there. James Baldwin. Yeah.
Okay, Peter. Thanks, Jeb.
Yes, starting with is just the glimpse into everyone's lives that I've met here on this forum. It's been eye-opening, and it's just good to connect with people across the country. And I've learned a lot listening to all of what you say and you're hearing about your lives. But on a larger scale, the death of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, the jogger in Georgia, all those things, I wasn't naive about how severe racism was and how the police have long abused Black and Hispanic citizens. But I think I got far more depth of understanding of how deeply it has affected them. I think that after all that, there was such a forum for people to express themselves and really get down to the nitty gritty of how it's impacted their lives, and in a really severe way. And I think that was eye-opening to me. And then the response, as Jeb talked about earlier, of so many people joining with the Black Lives Movement to get out on the streets for months, to get out and here in Phoenix. It was the middle of summer. It was 110 degrees out, and they're marching on the streets of Phoenix, Black, white, brown, Indian, joining together and leading that movement that was moving us forward. And it was gratifying that I think that made a difference. We registered people to vote across the state, across the nation, to make the difference, even though we still had 74 million people vote for Donald Trump after 4 years of his hatred. And it is just astounding that happened. But we did win the election. We can move forward. That gives me hope. The 3,000 MAGA march today in Washington instead of the million, just more BS from that wing of our nation. I hope we go forward. I know that in Georgia is really an important race, the Senate. That's going to be vital. If we can win those seats, that would make a huge difference. But just to get back to where I started with, just understanding how many people suffered for so long, and it's still going on. There's protests in Columbus, Ohio, my hometown today, for the young man who was shot just senselessly. And then here in Arizona, they just reported that there's a police officer, a white police officer, has an emergency call. The black man or a white man is carrying a gun in his hotel. And so he goes to the scene and he finds a black employee at the hotel, and he holds him at gunpoint for a long time until the manager comes out. And they just did an investigation. And even though he held this guy for 10, 15 minutes at gunpoint, he wasn't let go of he's still on the force. He's doing desk duty for some time, but he wasn't fired. And, this is an opportunity to get rid of the bad apples in the police department, and it's still not happening. And so I understand the frustration. Hopefully we move forward. I know there's going to be a huge reaction to the move by the Minneapolis police or city council to cut money from the police department. And the defund the police phrase is awfully misleading, and it scares people. And I hope we can figure out how to politically handle that, because that's important to make changes in police departments and to get people on board with that.
All right. Thanks a lot, Peter. Pat put a very interesting question in the chat, and I would like you, Pat, to read that question. And I'd like Jeb, Peter, Kathy, and Brooks to address it. I do have one question, too, that I do want to ask. I know Gary has to wrap it up because he has an appointment. But so if you could answer that question quickly, and then we'll get to this last question here. And I'd like Gary to go first on that one. So, Pat, will you read the question you wrote in the chat, please?
Sure. Sure. I was wondering who represents white folks. You guys or the ones who voted for Trump? It was a serious question because I didn't know. I was shocked by the number of people who still voted for Trump.
As we all were. 70 plus million people out there believe this man did a good job. 70 plus million people believed he is the best to lead this nation. And while they say,
Anointed by God,
16% of those people were Black or Hispanic, the overwhelming majority were white. So I think that's a valid question. Who wants to answer it? Go ahead, Kathy.
Well, it's interesting. And I'll try to be quick, but I and a cousin of mine are struggling with some family members who are Jewish, who are huge Trumpers. And I understand now why. It's because Trump took care of the upper class people in this country, the white folks who have money. He helped them pay less taxes. He helped them become wealthier. He also the other supporters are in the rural areas, these white folks who rely and work with fossil fuels. They didn't like what was happening with climate change. They love the fact that he took money away from that and into coal miners' hands and the oil and gas industries. He was all about those white people. But this is a real hard question because, I want to say that we represent the majority of the whites in this country. But again, 74 million, the majority being white, voted for this crazy man. So it could be a whole forum just on that, I think. So
I'll jump in here and say, I had a coworker that I was having lunch with, and he disclosed that he was going to vote for Trump. And I was just heartbroken to hear that. I mean, I don't think he's a racist, but he said to me, well, I want some balance. I don't want the Democrat in the White House. I want to protect my 401k. So for some people, it comes down to their personal interest, their financial, like Kathy was saying, that's frustrating. And the people that you think are good people, and they just surprise you because I just can't abide what Trump has done, and you ignore that just because you're going to have a better bottom line, and maybe you got your judges on the courts to hold the line on progress, and it's very frustrating to see that. It's also just this tribalism that we have of I'm on this team, you're on that team, and I'm just going to go this way, even though I'm going to swallow hard. I don't like what he says and what he does, but he's done a good thing in the policies of the country. I agree with that. And so there's a lot of racism, and that it shows in the vote, and that so many white people, especially white men, supported Trump.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Melody.
And I've heard this before. Excuse my ignorance, because maybe I should know better, maybe not. But anyway, I've heard that before. People say that they're voting for Trump because they don't want their 401k to go down. So is it a given just because we have a Democrat president that everyone's 401k is going to go down? I'm just curious.
No, that's a fallacy. It's the Republicans were always fighting against the deficit, and until they got in office, and they blew the hell out of the deficit. It's insane right now. So they claim the flag, they claim fiscal responsibility, but we all know that's a lie.
I think it's an excuse.
I just wanted to ask because I'm like, why do people use that? Because Is it just a given that because it's someone else, not Donald Trump in office, that everyone's 401k is just going to go down the drain? I mean,
Because that's all they got.
and that some
All they
people
got,
have their reasoning for voting for him.
Well,
It's
Trump
an-
changed the whole
I-
tax structure to benefit the wealthy.
Yeah.
So that's where that is coming from. People made more money, just like Trump hasn't paid taxes. As far as we know, in many, many, many years, white wealthy people say he's our man because we're paying less taxes. So
Look-
it is a fallacy, like Peter said, without a doubt.
Plus they've repeated that lie. It's the old Nazi, you repeat the lie often enough and people believe it, whether it's true or not. And so they have repeated the lie over and over and over that Republicans are good for the economy. Republicans manifestly are not good for the economy. But the average white person, especially, believes the lie because it's flattering and it gives them an out. In answer to Pat's question, I am very sad to say I think Donald Trump represents the average white person more than we do, because he is the apotheosis of what the Republican Party has been working towards since Goldwater, really, but certainly Reagan. And I remember, I'm old enough to remember Reagan, the Reagan years. He was a monster. And my brothers and father loved Ronald Reagan. He was a monster. But white people, especially white men, are frightened because they think that Black people and brown people are going to treat them the way they've treated Black people and brown people. Just like men are afraid, straight men are afraid that women will treat them the way that they've treated women. They know how cruel they've been. They know how relentlessly they've oppressed everybody else. And they are terrified that if they lose that power, the people they've oppressed are going to treat them the same way they've treated the people they've been oppressing, because they can't comprehend that not everybody lives in fear the way they live in fear. They can't comprehend that people don't want revenge. I don't want revenge. I'm a gay man. I don't want revenge on straight people. I don't want straight people, leave me the fuck alone. Pardon my French. But I want what my brothers have taken for granted and have said that they support me, but then vote for people who are working to make my life smaller than their lives. They think that the pie is only this big. And if you give somebody else more, then you have to lose. It's a zero-sum game. There's no sharing. There's no making the pie bigger. If someone wins, someone has to lose. That's their mindset. And Trump is the perfect expression of that. And what I'm really afraid of is that now they've learned, if they've learned anything, that we just can't go quite so overtly crazy. And we need to get somebody who has all the exact same policies, but is a nice smiling face about it.
Yeah, if you want to add anything to that before I move on?
Yeah, just very
Thank you for coming to
quickly.
my TED Talk.
I think you guys are right. God, I hope, Brooks, I hope you're wrong. I mean, it's a question of how big is that number, who represents
60%
us.
of white people voted for it.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to believe that that's true. I mean, I know Trump voters here. There's a guy who lives down the mountain, perfectly nice guy. He collects our UPS packages because the truck can't make it up here. I know he's a Trumper. He's got signs all over his lawn. He wears the hat still. I know perfectly well that if he came across a kid with a broken bike by the side of the road, he would help. This man would help that kid whether he was Black or white. So I know that in his personal life, I'm sure he is racist in terms of collectively, but individually, I think he's a perfectly nice guy. The problems come down to two
But
parts.
isn't that
and
the
you guys
case with all white people? Isn't that the
Yeah,
case with
probably.
all white people?
I was
Individual,
gonna
well,
say,
not all. That's
I was
not
about
fair.
to, I was about to say, nice guys can be bad people.
Right.
Yeah, no.
Individually, you can be the most racist person, and it helped me individually, but collectively, you could just be racist, period.
Nazi Germany was filled with nice people.
That's true. Yeah, no, I think the point I want to make was there's a lot of fear. You guys have touched on that, and there's a lot of ignorance. The ignorance, God, there's a whole world of reinforcing Fox News and OAN and Trump, reinforcing ignorance. America first appealed to a lot of people, even if they weren't, against Black Lives Matter. The appeal of America first and foreign policy, pretending that he's had these foreign policy wins, which he hasn't. There's a lot of ignorance, and I don't think we can do a lot about that as individuals. Collectively, in groups like the NAACP or other organizations, we can try and fight that. But we can do something as individuals about the fear, and that's just reaching across a barrier as individuals to other individuals. These conversations like this are addressing fear and turning the fear volume down, and these kind of conversations will help that side of the equation.
Okay. All right. Whew, yeah, you're right, Kathy. This could be a whole discussion, and maybe that's something we'll put on the agenda for 2021. All right. So here's my last question to everyone. Are you hopeful for change? And realistically speaking, how much change do you think we're actually going to see? And let us start with you, Gary.
No, I am hopeful for change, but being realistic, I think we're going to have the same problems that we're seeing now, the same problems that we're going to continue to have. There are just a lot of people who are openly racist. There's more people who are undercover racist. The type of people who, the nice people that will fix your kid's bike, and if you need your child to come over there, because you're not at home, they're not opposed to that. But the same people that are probably opposed to your child marrying their child, okay, or would be critically upset if your child gets a position maybe more higher, gets the position that you feel your child should get. Now you feel as though there was some sort of bias there or affirmative action. So for me to answer that question, I think I would have to probably not try to be the moderate that I try to be and just totally be honest. I mean, a lot of people don't want that. A lot of people don't want change. A lot, like what Jeb is saying, there is a lot of fear in this country. Do I think it can get better? Yes. But I think that's going to be the problem. Look at the situation that we have with, I know we've talked a lot about George Floyd today, but think about that. There are a lot of people who are like, they have no idea. Oh my God, I didn't know people felt that way. But people have felt this way for years, okay? For at least 100 or so years in terms of the whole, if you look at the history of law enforcement in African American communities, this is not a new thing. But yet some people think that it is. And some people totally forget that for the last 6 or 7 years, this is what the African American community has had to deal with, Trayvon Martin, but even before that. So I think that if we're going to have any hope, people got to really begin to just change their mind. They really got to understand these things are real. We got to stop dealing with the fear. We got to, if we're saying that our lives matter, we're not saying that your lives don't matter, but you can't be afraid of us when we say our lives matter. You can't be afraid or offended if somebody wants to kneel, or bow their head or whatever, if, they have an issue. So that's the problem. The reaction to all of these issues is that, oh my God, or there's something wrong with you, or you must have been a criminal. So all of these things. So if we can ever get past those things and realistically recognize that, okay, maybe this person has a really legitimate problem, then yeah, we can do it. But that's the change that has to happen. So I don't mean to repeat myself, but I'm just saying that's what needs to happen. It can. There's always a chance for hope, And I know I look at myself and I say to myself, this year has made me really tired because I'm just like I'm tired, but I also recognize I can't quit. I gotta keep going. So we need more people because I know I'm not the only person in the room that's tired. But we can't quit. We got to keep going. 2020 has shown us that. So yes, we can change, but I mean, we need more people to take their heads out the sand, be real, call racism what racism is, call foolishness what foolishness is. Call Trump what Trump is and what he was.
Okay.
That's all I got to say. I'm
You're gone. I got you. All right. Thanks so much, Gary. And we will definitely see you in 2021.
Guys, it has been a pleasure to meet each and every one of you guys. I'm definitely looking forward to 2021. Thank you, guys.
Happy holidays, Gary. Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
Great
Happy
meeting
holidays.
you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
I'll see you on Twitter.
You will. And Jeff
Yeah.
too. Okay. All right, guys.
All right. Take care. All right. So let's keep moving along with that same question. And I'm going to go to Peter next. Are you hopeful for change in 2021? And
Yes.
realistically speaking, how much change do you think you're really going to see?
I am hopeful. I'm an optimist. However, I think the baseline is that we've gotten the lunatic out of the White House. Well, we hope he will leave and we will escort him out. That will end the daily lunacy that we are endured and the hateful things and the all the stuff we have to put up with Trump and his tweets. And that's very significant. Even though there's going to be another stalemate in Washington, I don't see the Senate. It will be. I think it's a fairly long shot. They win both of those seats, and even if they do, you still need 60 votes. So with Mitch McConnell, Mitch McConnell would be sidelined, but that would make a difference. That would make a huge difference. But there's still going to be a stalemate. If the Senate is still in Republican hands, they're just going to dig in like they did against Obama, and they're going to fight him and try not to do anything that will advance his cause or the cause of reform. One of the other good things is that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will be involved with the Department of Justice, and that will allow much action in terms of civil rights, things that have been sidelined by Trump. So that gives me hope that there'll be more fairness, and we'll get rid of Bill Barr. Those are all good things. And there's just the leadership of all the agencies. We're seeing this rush in the Environmental Protection Agency to streamline things, to get them done before Trump leaves office so that he can continue to do his damage to the environment, which has been a very serious thing the past 4 years. So we are going to take steps forward. Unfortunately, I don't believe that we're going to have, the significant changes in legislation that we need to move forward. But we, again, we'll have leadership from Biden and Kamala Harris to move forward on race. Even baby steps is a hell of a lot better than what we've had under Trump, going backwards to the 50s and before.
All right, thank you. I'm going to switch this question up just a little bit and ask you, Pat, what changes would you specifically like to see in 2021?
More involvement with each other. One thing that I think is really healing and really educational is simply for people to talk to other people. And that includes within the race as well. It tickles me It's not really funny, but I use the word tickle. But how many of the young hip hoppers were pro-Trump for whatever stupid reasons? And I think instead of saying, oh, those dumb kids, those dumb rappers or whatever, we need to talk within our race. I think white folks have to talk within their race, and everybody needs to just talk. And then the interpersonal relationships among the different races and groups, I think that has to happen too. It amazes me how many white people still think that, we're all first generation going to college, or we've just now discovering electricity, or just now learning, you have a mom and a dad. Come on. So we need to still talk among ourselves and each other so that people can learn. For example, I am hoping that people notice the silence of the Democrats. I haven't heard much from the Democrats. I mean, everybody's complaining about Trump personally, but I don't see any big outcry from anyone, Republican or Democrat. I want to see people have the courage to step up and say something. When you look at Nazi Germany, what was that night, that one, it started with one night, I don't remember what it's called. My sister was telling me about it, where
Kristallnacht.
Kristallnacht.
yes,
Kristallnacht.
Crystal night. Yeah.
It's the night of shattered glass, is what it means.
right. I don't know if we've had the equivalent of that. I hope we never do. But where something bad happens and no one says anything, and it gets progressively worse. We cannot allow that to happen. So, there
Yeah,
you go.
I agree with that. Brooks, did you want to comment on that?
Oh, I just said Tulsa as something that was horrifically that happened, but that was a long time ago. But that's kind of the thing. That was a long time ago. Emmett Till was a long time ago, and we're still where we are.
And we know that history has a way of repeating itself, which I really hate that, but it does come to fruition from time to time. So since Brooks, you are talking, I'm going to ask you, are you hopeful, realistically speaking? Do you think there will be much change in 2021?
So for decades, I have lots of these little set phrases. I've been saying properly calibrated expectations are the key to happiness.
Okay, that's
Okay.
deep. What does that mean?
That means, do I have hope? No, I have no hope. I have the resolution to continue working, but I don't hope to see things be dramatically better. I have a informed expectation, I think, that things will be a little bit better. I know that on the LGBTQIA side, things are dramatically better, but part of that is because queer people are born into straight families. White people aren't born into black families in the same way, so the process is slower. But I think that there will be small progress, smaller than there needs to be. But the fact that the Democrats have elected a very moderate, pretty conservative actually, black man as president, and a very conservative, still, Black and Indian woman as vice president, makes me a little bit more optimistic that there are still people who are willing to do the work. But last time I think I talked about my, the idea of, we can't smooth the whole road, but we can be a paving stone. And so we get to the end of that road and it's just rough, bare dirt. And so we can be that one small stone that makes the road a little bit smoother for the people who come after. And some people in this lifetime are amazing and smooth out, large chunks of it, but maybe I can be a paving stone. Maybe things will be a little bit better for the next generation that comes along.
I love that analogy. Thank you very much for sharing it again. Melody, let me ask you that same question. or those same questions. Are you hopeful for change, realistically speaking? Do you think there will be? And what would you really like to see happen in 2021?
I am hopeful for change. It's going to be a slow process. These types of conversations, I think, are very helpful and instrumental to the change that we would like to see. One of the things that I would really like to see, and I don't know how it would happen or if it's possible, but I feel like for us, we are a group of Black and white people that are kind of on the same page and kind of feel the same way about each other in the world, and we want peacefulness and togetherness. I would like to see those people with the extreme thought processes, white and Black, because I know there are Black people that have a certain feeling about white people and they don't want to talk to white people and they're skeptical about white people. So I would like to see those groups of people, we find some sort of way to get those people to have conversations. They need to have these types of conversations and understand that we're all people. And beneath this layer of epidermis that if we took that off, we would all just be people. So I would like to see that as something to start to help to go along with the change. It's going to be a long process, regardless. And I'm sorry, I had made a note here and I can't even, I know that Jeb, I think, was talking about the Black Lives Matter movement. And I would just like to say, I know I've said it on a couple of these calls. When you see a Black person say Black Lives Matter, take it as a positive affirmation. Don't take it as anything other. It should not be a movement for us. It's a movement for us when we come out of the womb. So take it as a positive affirmation. Continue to support us and uplift us, and talk to people who have a certain feeling about us and let them know that we're all the same. And like I've said before, those people that really feel like we're trying to take over and we want to give back to them what we've gotten, they've got it wrong. That's not what we want. Like Brooke said, we just want you to, excuse my French, shut the fuck up and leave us alone and let us be peacefully. So that's where I am.
Okay, and you know what? That's a good point. I'll wait. Hold on, Pat. I just wanted to say, Melody, I will work on that in 2021 because I agree. We do need to have varying opinions. I kind of knew that everybody that I had invited would kind of have a similar opinion. But I know I am connected to other people who have different opinions. The problem with that, though, is that they don't want to come on and publicly say in front of other people how they really feel. I've had people decline because I feel that that's what they think, but they can spew all of that hatred, online and with each other. But when it comes to a diversity of people to be able to express their real thoughts, they shun away from it. But I promise you in 2021, I will work on that. Pat, go ahead. You wanted to say?
I was going to say, these conversations have definitely been helpful. And with you saying that, it makes you wonder, does that person really have that hatred deep down in their heart, or are they just going along with the majority? Because if they really had that hatred deep down in their heart, I think they wouldn't care about spewing it out and getting it, publicly. So it just makes you wonder about those people. But I'm sorry, I'm not going to keep talking. Go ahead, Pat.
I was just going to say, it just tickles me to think back to the 1970s, and we said Black is beautiful. I don't remember white folks saying, are you saying whites are ugly? We're all beautiful. I don't remember that ever happening.
I don't either. You're right. You're absolutely right. Or say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. I mean, nobody ever challenged that either. So, okay. All right, moving on. Kathy, what are your thoughts?
Wow. Well, I have so many thoughts. I'm always struggling to put it the way I want it. But first of all, I'm very hopeful for change. I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. I'm going to look for the next conversation to keep it going. I will continue to build relationships. I think that is hugely important. I will not stop educating myself and others from what I've learned. And I know that in Akron, I'm part of a 5-year plan for change with our community. And I'm hoping that will keep some of the momentum going here locally. I'm on the communications committee. You'll love that, Beverly. That's the committee I'm on. I think my fear is that with Biden and Kamala and things calming down, that people may become complacent. And that's a huge fear, because I mean, is it like, well, unless another Black person gets shot, is that what we're going to need to have to keep this going? Or can we continue lots more conversations? I mean, as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, wow, Beverly, you do such an incredible job. You know, could I start more conversations and build on that to keep it going? Can we all do that? Can we find people like Beverly did to have these thoughtful conversations and keep the momentum going? That's what I'm scared about. We're gonna just slow down because this crazy idiot is gonna be gone. And even though he's still gonna be tweeting and he's still gonna be raising money and he's gonna have his following, what are we all gonna do? How can we keep it going? That's the biggest thing, I think.
That's
So.
a great question, because I fear the same thing. I think that once Biden and Harris get in office, I think things will slow down, and I do believe that a lot of people will become complacent and think, oh, things are changing now because we've changed the White
Right.
House, and that's not the case.
Right.
There's a lot of work to be done.
Because I think that's kind of what happened over the number of years, and just like right now, we realize that that's what we had done over the years. So hopefully, we learned a lesson from that, and we don't make that allow us to become complacent again.
And I think that if you're talking about through the Obama years, those 8 years that he was in office, it's interesting. There was a lady on the one of the previous calls, and I don't know if you all remember, Jean, who said she thought that when President Obama was elected, that racism had ended. And, that was the thinking of a lot of white people. And that was the thinking of some Black people too. So we let those 8 years go by without really anything going on, no action. And then Trump comes in, and now all of a sudden it blows up in everybody's faces. And now here we are. So.
And Beverly, I think, I've heard a lot of talk and questions about Obama, that here's this Black man in office for 8 years, and none of this happened then. Why? Some people say it's because Obama felt that it can't be about him. It can't be him pushing the racism button, which, I don't know how I feel about that. I'd have to look back on things. But why didn't more happen in those 8 years with this incredible president that we had?
Because you still had a predominantly white Congress. That's why nothing
Well,
happened.
white-
I mean, that's the reality of it all. Let's not dance around that.
You're right.
Yeah.
Congress
Yeah.
stopped everything.
We had a
Every
white
bill that
Congress.
yeah.
They made it their mission to stop
right.
the Black man. And then Democrats, because it's hurting cats, immediately, like right now, a lot of my friends are going, oh, now we can worry about the climate. Now we can worry about the police. Now we can worry about environmentalism. Now we can worry about all these other problems that we're going to diffuse, send our energy out into these other things. Whereas the white supremacists are still going to be working to advance white supremacy. So we take our eye off the ball because we have our eyes on so many other balls.
Yes.
They have only that one
Yes.
thing to
Yes.
worry about.
You
And
better preach.
And I think the fact, even though Biden is white, he is going to have the same issues. Beverly, you brought up the best point about Congress. He's going to be stopped with everything he wants to do as well.
Well, because they believe Democrats are intrinsically not Americans, and are any Democratic president is invalid, is not a real American.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
have a pure, small, tiny America. We have a big, messy, complicated America that's unwieldy. Their America is tiny and pure and simple. And so they can have that knife blade cut through anything else, whereas we're herding cats.
Melody, did you want to say something before I go to Jeb? Thanks.
I was-
Brent.
I was just gonna say they also still have an issue with Biden with his association with Obama, and the issues that they had with Obama, the fact that he was his vice president. It's just like with Hillary. She has the same ideals as Obama, so they'll use that against him as well. And Mitch McConnell, he needs to go away because he is a big problem for a lot of us, and I don't understand how he. It's almost like a bunch of people need to move to Kentucky to get him out of there so we can vote him out. And then
Maybe we can all move. Yeah, I don't understand that either, but
Don't make me move to Kentucky. I don't want to move to Texas. I'm not going to move to Kentucky.
Just when
I'll
Stacey
start talking like this all the time. I don't want to do
But
that.
I have a problem with Biden. I didn't want to vote for Biden at all because I still haven't forgotten about the Anita Hill incident.
Right.
So, only when he put Kamala on that ticket was when I said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and vote. But, there are things that we do remember about Biden, whatever his associations were with whomever, what he did in the past, that, people will continue to use against him while he's in the White House. So, okay, Jeb, I know that we kind of went off the deep end here, but we're going to reel it back in and get your thoughts.
I'm hopeful. I mean, I'm always hopeful. I'm sorry, Brooks. You don't share the same immediate sense of optimism, but I'm not hopeful that we're going to turn, this ship around. We've been a racist country for 400 years. But I think we can make incremental changes. I think politics-wise, very briefly, there's a big debate going on. It's very healthy within the Democratic Party between the progressives, led by AOC and the Squad, and these terrific young women of color that are in there and pushing the envelope. Great. That's going to push Biden. Biden's already shown that he's a man who's capable of self-reflection and change and sensitivity to other people. So I'm fairly happy about that and positive, but I don't think we can start with politics. I think the thing with we're all so focused on Trump for so long that we think, God, if we can only get rid of him, everything's going to be better. And it's not. As Peter said before, we've stopped this negative, the train is no longer heading off the bridge, into the abyss. We've maybe halted it just at the edge of the cliff. But what's going to pull the train back isn't politics. Politics just reflects, what's really happening in the country. And so I think that the politics will follow us as we make local progress and personal progress in examining ourselves and just chipping in. And Kathy now, welcoming people across the street with a smile on her face instead of fear, that changes a lot. And a lot of us have been through that. I know exactly how you feel because I've done both too. It's just a much bigger and greater life to embrace difference and diversity rather than run away from it. And our lives are richer. And I think part of what we can do is share that and hope that the next generation, our children and the people coming up, see that and just say, well, that's just a more interesting and agreeable way to live than acting out of fear. Now, but that's long term, that's really, really incremental. So but that's the arc bends towards justice, but it's a long and slow progress along that arc.
Bev, can I just say something?
Yes.
Okay, so this Black Jewish journey I'm on, I was just thinking about that as everybody was talking, and I'm on this Love Akron Zoom that's monthly on Black White Conversations. I think you guys might disagree with me, but I think working with a church, having a basis of religion is bringing more people together. I know it sounds crazy. This Love Akron that I'm on is a Christian-based organization, and I and a number of Jewish people are on with it. And we've found a place to start conversations. People believe in God. Many people do, not everyone. And because of that, we share that huge similarity and can start building from that base. I've seen it. I've seen it with the work I'm doing with the House of the Lord and my temple. I've seen it with Love Akron, that people are feel more open to sharing when they know that we have a religious base of, similar backgrounds in that way. I know that didn't really come out the way I wanted to say it, but hopefully you get the gist of this. I know you don't have to be religious to make these changes, but I think it's a quicker way for people who belong to a congregation to work together, to build faster than randomly. I don't know.
I probably would have agreed with you prior to Trump getting in office, but after I saw those pastors who were laying hands on him and praying around him and the white evangelical movement, I have to say that, I'm so skeptical now because, everybody's walk with Christ is so different, and everybody who may be in a congregation together may not all be on the same page. So yeah, I can see your point, and I do respect it. And I do believe that there are instances where that really does work. But I've also seen the ugly side of so-called religion, and it really is not pretty at all.
And I respect that too, because you're right. Nothing is perfect. Nothing is perfect. But we just have to keep talking. We just have to keep doing this.
Yeah.
On steroids.
All right. So does anybody have any closing comments that they would like to offer before we end this?
I just say how much I admire Kathy's water bottle. That's the biggest glass I've ever seen. Oh my God.
There is a story behind this,
Gallon?
So Beverly will love this. When I had my first hip replaced, I was at the Cleveland Clinic, and they give you this little mug that says Cleveland Clinic, and it's measured, and it comes with a plastic straw. Well, I took that home, and this was in 2012. And since 2012, that is how I drink my water every day. So 2 weeks ago, my son lives in San Diego, my daughter's in Toledo. My kids kept seeing my mug, my Cleveland Clinic mug on the Zooms. And all of a sudden, I get a text from my son. It says special delivery, go look at your door. And on Amazon, he said, we decided it's time you got rid of your Cleveland Clinic mug. And this was sent to me. Honest to God, I'm like building my muscles with this thing. It weighs so much with water in it.
Enormous.
But it's making me drink more. I will tell you that. So,
well, l'chaim.
Yeah, there you go. L'chaim. Next time I have to fill it with alcohol.
There we go.
Whoa.
I was going to say that. Go ahead, Chad.
I was just going to say, this was not a Bloody Mary, although it looked like one. There was no alcohol in that. We may get to that later, Andrew and I, but not. I did want to say that if you didn't see in the chat, I have been talking about Professor Henry Louis Gates's television show called Finding Your Roots on PBS. I threw a link in the chat to Andrea wants to say Merry Christmas. Happy
Hi, Merry
solstice.
Christmas.
Hi.
Let's-
Hey, Andrea.
Happy holidays.
Happy solstice.
The link in the chat is to an interview that Gates did with Christina Amanpour.
Oh,
And it's great because it includes a lot of clips to his show. And if you don't know his show, Finding Your Roots, it is heartwarming. As I said, it will make you cry with joy. It is talk about turning the way we think about race around. That show has the potential to really have an enormous impact if more people would watch it. So I encourage at least my friends here to watch it because if you don't know it
Sure,
yet,
thank
it's
you.
really, really great.
Perfect.
Copy that
Right.
link, put it in YouTube. As soon as we get off the chat, you'll be really happy.
Okay.
And from a pagan, happy solstice to everybody.
Well, happy solstice.
Happy solstice.
Melody?
I was gonna say I have seen a couple of episodes of that show, and it is a great show. Beverly, I was just gonna ask you to send us the meeting schedule for 2021.
I definitely will do that. And does anybody else have anything to say before we close?
I think
Happy
I just wanted to
holidays.
say, as an atheist, I'm really happy to hear about Kathy's program that is taking the narrative away from the white evangelicals who have
Yes.
used religion as a weapon against so many people for so long. And so if anybody, and that's something that I've said for a long time, is that people of faith need to take the power away from these other ill-meaning people of faith, because I can't say it. You know, it has to come from within the churches. It has to come from within the temples. It has to come from within the synagogues. It has to come from within the pagan circles that say, this is not what belief in God means to everybody who believes in God.
Cool.
and I have to say, so I'm working with our Akron Urban League, as I mentioned, and this was just an incredible moment. The executive director of the Urban League is just this wonderful woman in the community, very well thought of. And they do a huge Martin Luther King Jr. celebration every year, as many communities do. And they get like 450 people come to a breakfast. Obviously, this year it's virtual. So two things. There's a film that we're using for our program. It's called Shared Legacies. And it is about Black-Jewish relationships and going back to Martin Luther King. If anybody's interested, I can give you more information about it. But she said in our meeting last week that she had no idea that the Jewish people were so involved with Martin Luther King. And it opened her eyes tremendously. And they just invited our temple, us, to be part of the Martin Luther King Jr. celebration that they're having on MLK Day. And I felt so honored that she would want to do this. She's so thrilled about this program that I'm putting together. And so I know it's going to perpetuate after this. I know it's going to be successful, and I know that we're going to be able to open it up to the Akron community and beyond because of the work.
And I hope you get the opportunity, Kathy, to go beyond Dr. King, because the relationships of Blacks and Jews go way back, at least in the inner city, with the people, maybe my generation. Their parents shopped in stores that were owned by Jews.
Yep.
And the relationships were not always good. It was really interesting what happened during the riots after Dr. King got killed. The relationship of Blacks and Jews really changed during that time. It's really interesting. Really interesting.
It did. And I'm hoping, you know, this is also because of everything that's going on in the Black and white communities, that this Black-Jewish relationship has come back to the forefront. And there's lots of people all over the country that are doing things like I'm doing to bring it back and to build on it again. So.
Okay. All right. right. Well, on that note, I am going to wrap this up and just say how much I have appreciated all of you, even those who were not able to be on the call today, for taking time out of your busy Saturday to have these insightful, engaging conversations. Ever since June, people have come in and have shared their thoughts, shared their fears, shared their hopes and dreams and goals for a better America. And for that, I thank all of you. I also don't want you to forget the George Floyds and the Breonna Taylors and the Rayshard Brooks of the world. And also those names that we haven't even heard of, like Tyree Davis out of Chicago, who was the first Black man gunned down by police in 2020. We never heard his name. And there are countless others. 164 Black people were killed by police in the first 8 months of this year. And even after George Floyd's death, more Black people have continued to be murdered at the hands of police. So the race for equality is going to be a long one. I don't know if the race for equality is exactly the right word that I want to say, but the challenges of equality are going to continue to be something that I am hoping each and every one of you will continue to be a part of, to engage in, to give all your energy to, and all of the other social injustices as well. But we don't want to be overwhelmed. Like Brooks said, we don't want to be dealing with the climate change, the racism, the environment, this, and this, because we really do have to focus. I also want to take this opportunity to say, offer my condolences to Terry Lucas Washington, who lost a family member to COVID. Also to Vicky Noe, who suffered a concussion recently and could not join us on the call today. And a special thank you to Jeb, Peter, Kathy, Patricia, Brooks, Melody, and Gary for joining us for the last call of 2020. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Beverly.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Happy New Year, everyone. Here's to a better 2021.
Have fun in
Thank-
2021.
All right, we'll do it all again next year, guys.
Okay.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Long life.